Hello, this is Storm Warden coming back at you today with another video update. And today we're going to talk about the concerning signal that we're seeing in the Caribbean for a potential tropical storm or tropical development. And we're going to talk about model consensus, and we're going to talk about the overall synoptic pattern and how this system could play out, and if this system actually has a good chance of forming. And at the beginning of this video, though, I will give you an overview of yesterday's storm and talk about how it verified, how my forecast verified. And then after that, we're going to talk about a pretty concerning signal in the Caribbean. So if you've been liking my weather content, please subscribe, as I will bring daily weather updates, at least the best I can. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get into it. So here I have the National Weather Service in Raleigh's overview of how this storm pretty much performed. And I gotta say, like, this storm pretty much performed up to forecast. Generally, you had about 2 to 4 inch totals generally across the region. You definitely had higher totals in certain areas from like Lilliton, Clinton, and points south and east where you had much higher totals. But overall, you had about 3 to 4 inch totals right around the Triangle area towards Chatham County and Lee County. But overall, you had some pretty hefty totals across the region, leading to a very wet soaker yesterday. So overall, things pretty much verified as far as rainfall. My forecast was 2 to 4 inch totals, and that pretty much verified across the region. Um, Lesser totals up north towards Roxborough and Henderson and Lewisburg and Roanoke Rapids. But overall, it looks like the brunt of this storm went right through the central and southeastern part of the state. So those areas seem to get hit the hardest. Now, if you were down near Wilmington and southeastern North Carolina, you definitely experienced a huge flooding event yesterday with cars submerged up underwater. You guys experienced a huge flood event that rarely ever happens. So, hope you guys are safe down there and recovering this morning. But you guys certainly experienced the brunt of this storm with very heavy rainfall and hurricane force gusts yesterday. So even though this storm didn't get a name, it certainly left a huge impact on those areas down south and east towards the coast and towards Wilmington. So that was a pretty impactful event yesterday, as I forecasted, and it seemed to have been forecasted pretty well by National Weather Service in Raleigh as well. Here's a maximum wind gust, and I don't know if you guys heard it, but definitely last night there were significant wind gusts across the region. It was pretty loud last night, hard to sleep from that wind. But you had wind gusts approaching that 45 mile an hour range, which my range was between 35 and 45, and it got there. Generally across the region, you saw anywhere between 40 to 45 mile an hour wind gusts. They did issue a wind advisory yesterday, and that pretty much verified across the region. Again, the highest gust took place in Fayetteville. We had like a 50 mile an hour wind gust. So overall, I mean, the system yesterday was pretty impactful for the Carolinas. Um, Probably the most impactful system we've seen in a long time, with very heavy rainfall and strong winds that came through in the overnight period. So um, generally, though, speaking, I'm proud of my forecast from yesterday. I think it verified pretty well. But that's the overall overview of yesterday's storm. I'm not gonna harp on that too much. But if you want to look at this, you just go to National Weather Service Raleigh's website, and you can see their forecast, or their overview of the forecast created from yesterday. Now we're gonna switch gears into the potential Caribbean system, which has had a stout signal from lately. Um, I'm seeing some pretty significant model consensus this early in the game. This season, I don't know if we've seen model consensus this high for a system, but this system looks like it has the potential to develop, and it is not a small potential. It's a pretty good potential that we have a system develop here in the Caribbean. We're not fighting any dry air like we usually have been this season, and the upper level wind pattern is quite favorable for development of a system. So overall, this system has a pretty high probability of forming down here in the Caribbean. So we're going to start off by looking at the GFS ensembles, because I'm not going to show you any dermatistic model run that shows a major hurricane plowing into Florida or the Carolinas. I'm just not going to show you that because it's not helpful, and it's just not a useful tool this early in the game. When it's this early in the game, you always want to use ensemble members, because these ensemble plots are made up of hundreds of model runs, and this is just a more useful tool this early in the game. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at the upper level wind patterns, some of the thermodynamics as far as dry air and instability and all that, and moisture content, and then we're going to wrap up this video. So looking at the first ensemble members, the GFS, the area that I want you to watch is this area right on down here. Right down here. This is the area that I want you to watch for some development of a system. Now, we're coming near the take it off the screen. Now we're gonna go through time and we're gonna run through this model run. You see this area of brightening colors and numbers. That's where your development could occur. Look how stout a signal that is for development out the GEFS ensemble members. That's quite the significant signal. I mean, I don't know if we had a signal this intense this season other than Hurricane Beryl. I mean, this is a pretty stout signal for a significant system to form out of the Caribbean and push into the Gulf of Mexico or possibly the East Coast. So, this signal is pretty concerning, especially since that what we call this area down here is a homegrown activity. This is the typical time frame where we start to see activity form out of the Caribbean and push up to the Gulf of Mexico or sometimes the East Coast. And the fact that we're seeing the signal right on time is pretty concerning, and a pretty stout signal at that. And I haven't really talked about this, but this has been going on for the last few days. And what it's doing, the only thing it's doing is moving up in time. We're at 144 hours, which is next week. We're talking about next week, guys. Next week, we could have a system in the Caribbean. And potentially a strong system if we take some of these ensemble members for the gospel. So this is certainly a stout signal and a concerning signal that we're seeing here in the Caribbean. So you'll certainly want to keep your eye on that. Now, I want to take you to the EPS ensemble members. What do they show? Well, we're actually going to cut back down to OOZ because that's a little bit more reliable here, and it goes out further. Again, we're watching the exact same area. You want to keep your eyes exactly where they were for the GEFS ensemble members. Look at this highlight. Look at this brightening of the colors and numbers as we get into next week. And guys, this is next week. I mean, it's really not that far away. It's just not. And we're seeing brightening colors. Now, granted, EPS ensemble members aren't as intense, and I'll tell you why. Part of that has to do with the fact that it has a stronger high pressure over here in the Atlantic, and so a lot of the ensemble members want to push this system into the Yucatan and towards Mexico. That is a possible solution this early in the game. It's possible that we don't actually get a surface low or spin up of convection that can actually create a system. It's possible that we just get a bunch of storms that move over the Yucatan Peninsula and then move into Mexico. That is a solution. But overwhelmingly, dermatistic guidance, ensemble guidance favors development of this system. And I don't want to jump ahead, but most of the ensemble members bring this into the Gulf of Mexico or the East Coast possibly. So overall, I think this is a pretty stout signal from the EPS ensemble members, and this is actually increased from the last EPS ensemble member runs that came out. So overall, the EPS ensemble members typically are a little bit too conservative, but I think we're seeing some increase in this possibility. So again, probability of this system developing out of the Caribbean is only increasing. Now, we have another group of ensemble members that I want to show you, and we're going through time. And again, looking the same as that area. And look at that stout signal from the GEPS ensemble members. I mean, that is a very stout signal with multiple ensemble member runs showing a significant system somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico as early as maybe next week. So this looks like a pretty significant threat in model, and I'm telling you, ensemble members are this consensus this early in the game is concerning, especially when it comes from homegrown activities such as down this area, where I think things are just very favorable for development. Um, you know, there's just I haven't seen a signal like this in a long time, so it's definitely surprising to see this signal. But this is a stout signal for a significant system. And don't pay attention to the track, because I know you probably see this and you say, "Whoa, all these go over Florida." Again, this system could be anywhere from Mexico all the way to just off the East Coast. There's a wide range of solutions, but I'm telling you guys, I'm certainly favoring development with this system. This system looks like it has a very stout signal with multiple ensemble members showing a potential system in the Gulf of Mexico. So overall, guys, this is a pretty stout signal that I'm seeing. Looking at the, I think I will show you. I'll show you this first. So the upper level wind pattern ahead of this system is quite favorable. We kind of have a similar, I want to say somewhat similar look to Hurricane Francine, where you had this trough interaction. And what's happening is that you have this eastern trough that's going to push through, and then on the backside of this trough, what you have is you have good flow aloft, and typically what happens, you get really good upper level divergence. So that's what I'm seeing with this system. And there's something about these trough interactions with these storms that are in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. There's just something about it that just has these things usually rapidly intensify and create tropical storm genesis. I'm telling you guys right now, the upper level wind pattern is quite favorable for some pretty good development of a system. You know, that trough interaction, that really good upper level divergence, you have really good flow aloft. You're probably going to get a system out of this if you can get an area of storms to really spin up and create a surface low. Now we're gonna jump back a little bit, and we're gonna look at the overall like thermodynamics of this system. Screen is going crazy right there. So we're going through time, and here's our system. Now again, please don't pay attention to the numbers or where this system goes. This isn't a forecast, but this is just me showing you that the overall moisture content from this system is huge. You don't really have any dryer trying to plow this system out of the way. You just don't. This system looks to be very large in nature as well, if it forms. We're looking at a pretty significant system here. I'm telling you. Don't pay attention to the track or the numbers, but just pay attention to the fact that when I used to show you this, it'll be a whole bunch of dryer pretty much plowing the system. This time it's the other way around. So, you know, favorable thermodynamics, favorable upper level wind pattern. Now we can look at the overall upper level pattern as far as high pressure and cold fronts and all that. Now, remember what I told you, the blue is troughing and the red is ridging. And as we go through time, here's what we have. We have a pretty big trough over the eastern United States. But what's going to end up happening is you get that system forming down here in the Gulf. Look at that ridging over top. And then you're probably going to have a ridging start to build in the Atlantic. That should help this system have that general track in the eastern Gulf. This should, now, the only caveat that I could see really is if this high pressure out here in the Atlantic trends a little bit stronger and it pushes this system further west, like some of the EPS ensemble members. But sometimes the Euro model has a bias where it wants to overdo the Atlantic ridge, and that's certainly been like a bigger issue for itself. Because simply, whenever we have these systems that come out of the Caribbean and the Eastern Gulf, you typically have some type of trough along the East Coast, which helps to kind of steer it towards the Florida West Coast, and then kind of does like an Ian type track. So that's something to certainly watch. But it looks to be a trough located over the Eastern U.S. this weekend, and then look at the backside of that trough, which should help upper level divergence for our system. So, you know, not bad. And here's the EPS ensemble members, or the EPS general theme, and it generally shows that trough over the eastern United States, and then we get a ridge that starts to build over the Atlantic, and this should help to keep the storm from probably pushing too far east. So out to sea track is probably unlikely. But again, everything's still on the table. So that's that. Here's the National Hurricane Center tropical weather outlook, and they don't have an outlook right now. They don't have this area outlook right now, but I'm almost certain that this is probably gonna be a lemon or a 20% chance at some point. Probably in the next couple of days, maybe the next few days, but this is certainly probably gonna be a lemon. Um, Probably just waiting for a little bit more model consensus, but I think the overall general theme has been that this system has a high probability of forming. So that's all I got today. I'm not really going to over talk this right now because there's just not much to talk about right now as far as the system other than the ensemble members, which show a very stout signal. So again, concerning signal coming out of the Caribbean. Again, I'll bring you daily weather updates from here on out on this system to see how this thing trends in the next few days. But I got to tell you, things are looking very favorable down here for homegrown activity.